Welcome back to Benny's Custom Works, proudly supported by Sparesbox and Valvoline. Today we're down at Bcw doing something a little bit different. We put the call out on Facebook and Instagram to you guys to see if there was something you guys wanted to know about Bcw or something you wanted to say. So today I'm going to be replying to a lot of those comments so you guys can all watch the video and so everyone can kind of have a bit more of an idea of what's going on currently with the channel and potentially what we're doing in the future as well. So we're going to dive straight in. I did put the post primarily on Facebook, but we do have some Instagram as well, so I'll try and get to everyone. Again, sorry if I do miss out someone. I will try and reply to the comments as well as actually replying here. So let's get into it. Straight off the bat, we've got basically a statement from Dallas. Go on an event, a co-adventure, the lifted Impreza versus MCM's lifted Outback sedan. Currently, COVID's pretty bad in New South Wales and Australia, so we're quite limited to what we can actually do. We can't collab with anyone at the moment, primarily because we're outside of a restricted area, but MCM are inside a restricted area. Much the same with Alan Woody, they're actually interstate from us, so trying to do some of those collabs at the moment are quite hard. So yes, it's definitely on the cards that we are going to be back doing that sort of thing when we can, but right now we're pretty much confined to the space we're in. Dave Harris, is the BF5 Legacy and SVX still around? The Legacy is still around. I'm actually accumulating parts for that at the moment to do a bit of a revival and a bit of a change up, a 2021 version of what 18-year-old Benny did. The SVX is long gone though, but I do still know where it is. A friend of mine owns it and my dad still has his SVX. So they're still around and hopefully one day we'll be able to get them back on the road and cruise them around. Paul, pretty sure that model of, Pretty sure I saw that model of car a fair bit when I lived in Japan. Okay, that comment's actually in relation to the picture I chose to put up. I bought another Century, but that one's actually already been sold. So that was a quick flipper, that one. Ian Kelly, good old Ian. Marv, Workshop Manuel.
Yes.
Ian's been working on some side projects with us as well, so that'll be coming up later in the year.
Just hanging out here, waiting for some free candy.
Will we see another early 50s Buick in your fleet? I hope so. A 50 popped up recently on Facebook that was for sale, but at the moment, A, it's in Victoria, so I can't go and get it. And B, I don't really have the available funds to buy another one, but I would definitely love to do another old American car at some point. Has internet fame made your life better or worse? I would say for the most part, I don't feel famous. I'm really just showing you guys what we do. I do notice probably at car meets, it's a little bit different. Funnily enough, people are more standoffish with me now than they used to be. So by all means, if you want to chat, come up. I'm not some crazy weirdo celebrity. Happy to chat, happy to hang out. We're just normal car people. I'm just showing you what we would already be doing anyway. So this whole thing wasn't about being famous or making money. It's, I guess, being a byproduct of it. I do enjoy doing what we do. But like I said, it's definitely not about being famous or making money. That definitely wasn't the priority. How big is your shop actually, and what happened to the original Barrow that got put into the Fox body? Two-part question, two very different answers. The shop that we are in right now is about 220 square meters. So this is the nice part, and the junk and the storage is behind these two walls. Funny story, the walls actually happened because the floor plan of this factory, when we kind of looked at it to lease it, didn't show any posts. We thought this was a freestanding factory. So the plan was actually to put the filming area in one back corner, but it turned out that all of this actually was dictated by the posts already being here. So we had to change the layout, and what you see is what you see. As far as the original engine in the Mustang goes in America, we had an oil pump failure. We were using a different supplier's oil pumps back in 2019. It just gave up the ghost. We've actually seen quite a few of those pumps from the same supplier since then fail. I'm not going to go into brands and bits and pieces that have failed or whatnot. That's not what we're about. But I can tell you that the HP Junkie pumps that we do use now are fantastic, and also the Empire mechanical gears that also drop into the stock pumps work really well for your lower horsepower, say up to 1,000 horsepower builds. But after that, we go for that billet HP Junkie pump. Where is the Sigma? The Sigma is still around. For the most part, every car you guys have seen on camera in the last 12 months is still around. I don't normally sell a lot of stuff, but every now and then something does get sold. We are going to be reviving the Sigma pretty soon. It is actually currently out of rego, but same thing, because of COVID restrictions, we can't go and get it registered because the club I am a part of is in Greater Sydney and we're out of Greater Sydney. So I've got to work out if I can actually mail the documents in to get that re-registered so I can drive it again. But yes, the Sigma's still around. You're definitely going to see more of it on BCW. How hard or expensive do you think it would be to make the 1GZ 1000 horsepower capable with today's technology? The 1GZ is a pretty good engine. In atmospheric conditions, like in an NA engine, no way it's going to make 1000 horsepower. Chuck a couple of turbos on it, no worries. But the pistons and rods aren't that great in that engine. You can buy forged pistons and rods, so it is definitely a possibility. Quick Shift TV, also WTF Auto, same guys in WA, are building a pretty high horsepower 1GZ and putting it in a Supra. Biggest issue with a 1GZ into a Supra or Sora platform is they only work in a front sump application factory. So if you do want to put a 1GZ in a Supra or a Sora, you do need to go to a dry sump or an aftermarket external oil pump setup, because the oil pump actually lives in the sump and a 1GZ is a front sump only engine. Good chat so far. Pumping through it. Can you finish my stage here, please? No, you can finish it yourself. Just wondering what's happening with the 32 GTR. It's here right now. We're actually going to be making another video on that pretty soon. So yeah, stay tuned for that. We're slowly collecting parts. A lot of it's been a lot slower than I had hoped. The biggest complication's actually been the driver's seat. I bought a really pristine driver's seat from Yahoo Auctions in Japan, and it turned up, the trim is immaculate, but the frame is actually really badly twisted. And I'd already given away my driver's seat that was in this car originally because I knew that one was coming. A mate needed an average condition one, which is what we had. But yeah, now we've kind of got to inversely look for a good frame to swap all of our really neat trim onto. Video of all of your cars. That's something we may do in the future. We could definitely look at dragging everything out. It's quite hard to try and shoot something like that because a lot of the cars are stored at different locations. I've got some at home. There's some obviously at BCW. We do have some in other storage areas as well. So it's hard to try and get all of that together logistically, but it is definitely something that I would like to do. I'd like to know where or how you learnt your skill set. Basically, long story short, I started as an apprentice mechanic in just a private mum and dad style servicing workshop, and then moved on to Subaru, finished my apprenticeship there. And at that point, I actually got out of the mechanic trade full time for quite a while and went to Ichiban Imports when it was originally in Moorebank. And I was the engine tester and yardie there for quite a while. Then it was taken over and relocated in 2010 or 2012, something like that, and moved to the current site, and we kind of kicked off the mechanical and performance side of it again. But primarily, a lot of the performance side of it is self-taught. There's no real access to trade schools in Australia for performance stuff. There's a few specialist shops, but it's definitely not a standard trade to do in Australia. And a lot of our trades are slightly different state to state as well. The training organisations are based state to state. So some states may offer more performance skewed stuff, but especially the fabrication side of it is more just hands-on and learning it. I have done a few trade-based welding courses, but I haven't done a complete fabrication or boiler making ticket. Unlimited budget, what would you build or own? I pretty much have most of the stuff I already want, but I wouldn't mind having maybe like an older Porsche or an older Ferrari. Like, I mean, F40's ultimate goal, but they're millions of dollars, and I don't realistically see myself ever owning an F40. But like you said, budget, unlimited budget, F40 all day. What's still in your project garage? As I touched on to that already, we've pretty much still got everything around. The Sigma's around, the Sentry's around, 32's around, the FGX is still around. That's going to be coming back out soon as well. Got the Cresta, i600 still kicking around. I don't think there's anything that is a secret at the moment. Everything's pretty much still happening. Gian's still got his Type X. That's going to be coming out sooner or later as well. No doubt I'll buy something sooner or later because things on Marketplace tempt me. Are you still giving away cars for people in need? We haven't actually done that project for quite a while. It was only a sort of an isolated project for the fire relief. We did get a lot of people that needed assistance, but unfortunately we also got a lot of people that were potentially taking advantage of the situation. So Once we kind of assisted the people that had an immediate need, we kind of pulled back because at the end of it, it was kind of just people looking for a handout, unfortunately. And we did a bit of research on a few particular people, and yeah, they were definitely trying to take advantage of the situation. So, I mean, if something similar happened, like another disaster or major issue that happened, and we have the means to help, we'll definitely be able to do it again. We've kind of got a bit of a better idea on how to do it now. We've also got some assistance from other businesses that will the same thing. They're in the same position. They're willing to help if needed. So, yeah, it is definitely an option to be able to do that again should we need it, but it's not something that we're doing at the moment. What's your ideal or dream workshop? We're pretty much in it. The only thing I would really like to add is a dedicated fabrication dirty room. It's on the cards that will happen at some point, but this is a leased building. We don't own this. One day I'd love to own a factory myself, and I guess that would be the dream garage. But to this point, we don't have the funds to actually buy a workshop this size. Like this is, like I said before, this is 220 square meters, and something like this in Australia is probably nearly $1 million now. So not particularly achievable at the moment, but yeah, it's definitely the goal to have our own workshop space at some point. Second part of that question, will the footage of your first trip in the Cresta ever surface, as in when you guys were over in Japan? That is actually in some Mighty Car Mods episodes back in the day. I'm just trying to think. I believe it was Chasing Midnight that the Cresta was actually in the background of. Basically, long story short, we bought that car to cruise around in because a hire car was actually the same price, if not a little bit more expensive. The photos we bought the car from, that didn't actually look that good, so the plan was more or less to just cruise around for a couple of weeks and then just put it back through the auctions. But once we got there and saw how good the car actually was, the plan kind of changed pretty quick, and yeah, kind of the rest is history. It got imported. It actually got imported to Brisbane, and then it went and sat at Owls for probably 12 months or so. Then the Transformers project was floated after the car had already come to New South Wales. So yeah, it's had kind of quite a convoluted past to get it here. Toyota or Subaru? Buy a BRZ, same thing. No, yeah, I quite like both cars. I've just kind of like most Japanese cars in general. Haven't had a lot of Mitsubishi stuff other than the Sigma, but would definitely see myself. I've always had a soft spot for an Evo wagon as well. But yeah, Toyota or Subaru. I guess I currently own more Toyotas than Subarus, so Toyota. Many say Richard from Haltech's beard is better than mine. Discuss. Yeah, probably is. Funnily enough, he wrote that, so good chat, Richard. The Cresta is an awesome car, but if you had your time over, would you choose a different chassis or different engine, or both? Knowing what I know now, if I was going to build a dedicated drag challenge, drag week type car, I probably would pick a different chassis purely because of the rear room, just more for passenger comfort. If I was going to pick a different platform to use, I would probably look at the XD, XE, XF Falcon. They weigh pretty similar weight to the Cresta, but they are a larger car, and they also already have a factory 4-link, so the floor would be better set up for an aftermarket rear end installation. But yeah, I'd still very much stick with the Barra. It's been a very capable engine. They don't cost a lot to build. I guess the one downfall, if you were going to take one to America, is parts availability, and for that reason, I suppose you probably look at a Turbo LS, but the reliability issues that we kind of encountered weren't that major. Z12 Nissan Cube. I would own a Cube. There's not a lot of Z12s in Australia. Z12s are massively common in America because they were actually sold there. Every Cube platform was never sold in Australia. The closest thing we got to a Cube was a Micra or a March for the international viewers. Would you change the engine in the Cresta? Yeah, I guess if we were primarily going to run that car in America, I'd probably go to a Turbo LS purely because parts availability, like you can trip over those things anywhere. Local parts stores have bits. But in saying that, if you prepare properly for drag challenge or drag week, you shouldn't really have that many issues. Obviously, stuff does go down and it is what it is. But yeah, if you're prepared, you should be able to mitigate most of those issues. When we have some more hoodies available, we do hoodies to a pre-order basis pretty much only now, just because they cost us quite a lot to make and our merch sales aren't particularly high. So trying to carry a lot of merch stock does hurt us pretty hard bottom line wise. So yeah, we don't I don't particularly like to plug merch pretty much. It just kind of ticks on the background, but I probably should push it harder. But I kind of feel dirty, and I don't really want to be seen as a massive sellout. Yeah, it's something that we probably should focus more on. But yeah, to answer your question, hoodies are group buy or pre-order only pretty much. Just watch out our Facebook or Instagram when we do another one. We will have another one coming up soon, so keep an eye on that. Would you be interested in doing a barra swap on my Toyota Crown? In short, we're not a retail workshop. In New South Wales, you have to be licensed to actually work on third-party or customer vehicles, which we're not. So we don't take on retail or third-party work at all. What you see here is our own stuff, or on the very odd occasion, friends or family cars will pop up here and sometimes make it to episodes. Would you ever have a cheap car challenge with Turbo Yoda, i.e. 2K to buy and 2K to fix? 100%. Same thing. When we can do it, we will do it. Something will go down and we'll all have fun and stupid things will be said. What's the one car you regret selling the most? This is actually a 3-part question. Adrian, to answer your question, my Subaru Fiore of all things, that car was a ton of fun. It was pretty much a ground up rebuild using a JDM donor car as a parts car, much in the same way that we did Marty's Mira, and for the same reasons, because that combination wasn't available in Australia at the time, and now since the import laws have changed, we can bring those in. But unfortunately, that car in Japan is now very rare. What type of car surprised you the most in the value it has risen? Pretty much most Nissans from the early 90s, S13s and 32 GTRs specifically. 34 GTRs have also blown out. But yeah, it's definitely surprising seeing the value increase, I suppose, in the last 5 years of most JDM cars. I guess that's probably because we cut so many up as parts cars and put those engines into cars that were also worth nothing at the time. But yeah, that pretty much covers that. All of your cars are different in your fleet. What is your favourite? But why is your favourite car your favourite? I don't really have a favourite car as such, because each car is kind of niche in what it does. The Cresta will always hold a place in my heart, I guess, just because of the adventures and the memories that's been able to give me. For that reason, that'd be my favourite car. But pretty much everything that's in the fleet puts a smile on my face for a different reason. 2 ideas for your projects: a rotary of some kind or a Mazda Speed MPS. Funnily enough, I did actually think about doing a Mazda Speed, or in Australia they call it an MPS, Mazda 6. I wanted to, however, build a Mazda 6 wagon with the MPS conversion. When I worked at Subaru dealer, we were also a Mazda dealer, and funnily enough, one day an MPS 6 and a Mazda 6 wagon came in on the same day, so I actually started to have a look at the underside of both cars, and for the most part what I can tell is that you can actually just change them over and most of the stuff should bolt in. What's your opinion on the BE B4 Liberty? Gary asks, pros and cons. The BE B4 is an amazing and terrible car at the same time. The body is really nice, the interior is really nice. The blue leather is a bit polarizing, but you can get JDM black interiors, so I'm not too fazed by that. However, mechanically, the gearboxes are pretty good. The Aussie delivered one's got a 4.1 box, but most of the JDM stuff was 4.4, which is the hot sauce. We used to put those boxes in everything. But the biggest downfall to those things is the sequential twin turbo system, because they just seem to fall off so hard between that first and second turbo change. If they were parallel, I don't think the engine would have enough steam to actually spin both of them at low RPM, so it would suck even worse. But they can be pretty easily fixed, because the Aussie delivered B4s were only here from 02 to 03, I believe, or maybe 01 to 03. And the ECU hardware is very similar to a version 7 STI or a 01 to 03 WRX. So it's pretty easy to repin the loom and make it single turbo. And if I was going to do another B4, I would definitely make it single turbo, because they just work so much better. They just drive heaps nicer. But I would probably change it up a little bit and put a twin scroll from a version 8 STI setup on it. How will you celebrate when the Cresta runs a 7? I don't really know. It's been a goal that we've chased for so long. There'll probably be some tears, I guess. Probably a few quiet shandies. But yeah, I guess we'll have to see when that comes out. What brand are the gold impact sockets that you often use with the Ryobi impact drivers? They are Tajima, I believe. They're from Japan. I've been trying to find them other than in Japanese hardware stores for a long time, to the point where I actually contacted the Tajima directly and they wouldn't sell me directly. So yeah, probably just look online. Some tool resellers may have them, but as far as I know, they're not available in Australia. Pineapple on pizza, sure, why not? How's the Sentry for a daily driver? It's really good. Not too bad on fuel once you get over the novelty of a V12, especially if you've got an exhaust on it and you drive it in second gear everywhere like I did for a couple of weeks. But yeah, the fuel economy of it once you start driving it a bit gets pretty good. Well, when I say pretty good, for a 2-ton car which has got a 5-litre V12, I'm seeing kind of 12 litres per 100. I'm not sure what that is in Imperial, sorry, but you guys will work that out or you won't. What do you think is the most interesting tool in your workshop? Me, lol. No, I don't know, maybe like something like a bore scope. Like I've got a pretty good little bore scope camera that's really handy. I was only using that yesterday, looking inside of a diff, which saved me pulling it apart. It basically meant I could confirm what LSD center was in that. So that was pretty handy. Would you be okay to do a quick talk about your legacy? Already touched on that. It's coming back and it is registered. Any plans to turbo the GS? What's a GS? Would you ever build an FD? 100% if they weren't 50 grand before I started. That's another car, I guess, that got away. Like we were touching on that before, what cars blew out. The FD RX-7 is also one that got away. I owned 2 FCs for a short time. Neither of them ran. I sold one to a mate who LS swapped it pretty straight up. It still exists today. The second one was a black convertible, which I've never seen again since I sold it. So no idea. But yes, I would do a rotary if we could afford it. Both the engine and the platform themselves are quite expensive. The idea was floated to put a rotary into a Sigma or into the Sigma, but it's pretty prohibitive cost-wise. It's not really that cost-effective for us. What got you into Japanese cars? Mates, yeah. I actually had a ton of minis, believe it or not. My 6'2" frame didn't really lend itself that well to minis, but throughout high school, I probably bought and sold 10 or more minis. That was actually what got me started in cars, was kind of hustling that mini parts on the side was how I funded my first project car. And another mate had a mini at high school and we used to knock around and play around with that, and his one was driving, but my one never drove. I never actually owned a registered one, which was a bit of a bummer, but that's all something I probably would like to revisit at some point. Probably wouldn't mind a little Leyland panel van if there was one floating around for the right price, but yeah, same thing, those things are starting to blow out as well. What are some of the most ridiculous questions or requests you've come across regarding reselling JDM wheels? Probably not really ridiculous requests, but the most common one is, what do you have in 15x80 offset? Shout out to Market Barrel Brothers. He'll be the only one in the world that understands that joke. Or people always asking, what do you have in a certain stud pattern? And then it's like pulling teeth to get all the information to actually work out if they fit. With that in mind, if you do want to buy wheels from anyone, not just me, try and give the seller as much information as possible, because it will help you both very muchly. Thoughts on Ryobi tools versus Snap-on and Milwaukee? First and foremost, we're not sponsored by Ryobi. It's just cost effective and it works. The reason I don't buy more expensive stuff is A, we beat the hell out of it, and B, it's just cheap. It's almost disposable. I'm happy to lend anything out at the track. So if I had like an $800 Snap-on rattle gun, I probably wouldn't be lending it out. But I've left stuff with tools with people for days before, lent rattle guns and stuff out. And I've also had pretty good results with the Ryobi stuff. Like, I won't lie, we've punished that stuff, and I'd say I've probably replaced maybe 1 or 2 rattle guns and 1 or 2 grinders over the entire ownership of my Ryobi stuff. I went through a spate of killing Recipro saws though. Apparently you're not supposed to cut cars in half with them, but here we are. Full list of cars you've owned. This video would go for an hour if I listed all the cars I owned. I did start to put together a list, and I think I tapped out at about 70 cars between registered and unregistered. But yeah, it's definitely been quite a long list, and probably been a few little odd ones in there. I've owned 2 50s Buicks. I had a 50 and a 53 Buick at one point. Sold both of those cars to fund, actually I sold the Black 50, funded the Century, so that's the reason why we have a white Century. What, if any, hobbies do you have outside of the automotive world? I don't really have any other hobbies, I guess. I've got a mountain bike, which I don't really ride anymore. That's why I look like this. And I used to play golf a heap, but I kind of got out of that. And I guess hobby, I collect model cars and stuff as well, but not fanatically. Always kind of go and kick the bug and bin at Big W and see what cool stuff's lying around in there. But yeah. What's your favourite thing about the zoo? Taking my kids. I have kids. It's not really publicly known, but yeah, I have 2 kids. I'm married, hence the tattooed on wedding ring. I've been married for quite a while, and yeah, that's my favourite thing about the zoo. Where is the cappuccino? Will the cappuccino make a return at some stage? I sold all my cappuccinos up. I owned 4 at one point, started collecting them up, and then through various channels moved them on to other people. Thoughts on a 1GZ swapped GS300 from Alex? There is, or was, a 1GZ swapped GS300 at Drag Challenge. Next Level Motorsport in Queensland did that. It's basically just a slightly lighter Century. It's cool, but there's definitely other end. I mean, the GS300 comes with a 2J, so just turbo that. Would you import a Gen 1 Twingo from France and turn it into a meth-injected skidding machine? Or a meth-injected LS skidding machine? I'm not really into burnout cars in general. A Twingo probably would be a little bit too much of a challenge. I'd probably import that car from the In-Betweeners because that's funny. That yellow Fiat thing, that was cool. Oh, I've lost all the people. Favorite car out of all the cars you've owned? Already touched on that. Every car, it offers different things, so I don't really pick a favorite. Does a straw have 1 hole or 2? 1. It's a cylinder. What plans do you have for Drag Week in the USA, and are the 2 chuchas from the skid factory willing to join again? Unfortunately, because of the current situation, we don't have any solid plans, but we are definitely going back. Both Benny with the Mustang and myself are super keen to get back. There's also, I won't say plans, but we're loosely talking about maybe taking the cars somewhere else in the world as well. So we definitely want to keep that sort of travel and racing alive. But yeah, with current conditions, it's not possible. And Al and Woody, will they come again? I guess that's on their terms. Al's always keen for an adventure. Woody can be hit and miss with his wanting to come and film stuff, and I understand it's quite an undertaking for him to do all that work. So yeah, I know he wants to come and hang out, but unfortunately, being that there's so many limited seats in each car, each person has to have a role. So basically, it's a working holiday. I'd like to know if you missed the Stagia. Some days I do, but I didn't really drive it a lot towards the end. There were a few niggling issues that I didn't love about the car, and funnily enough, when I sold the car, I made sure that I fixed every single little thing that annoyed me about it. So the new owner has basically like the finished or the final version of the car. It went through a lot of reiterations and modifications throughout my ownership, and I never really got to, I guess, enjoy it as a finished thing, but being able to pass that on to someone else who now loves the car is pretty cool. Trying to work out radial, drag tyre size to put on my car. Jimmy's put some sizes here. Long story short, Jimmy, put the biggest tyre you can under it unless you're specifically trying to race in a class or tyre availability in your area. You listed 225 50 15 here. If you can build a bigger tyre under it, by all means, there's no reason to not put a bigger tyre under the car. You'll probably just be restricted. Looking at the weight of the car, I'd say it's going to be a pretty small car. So yeah, just put the biggest tyre you can unless you specifically want to run in a class or you want to be the fastest pink starlet on a Tuesday on a 215 radial, because you'll probably win that award. What's next for the Cresta besides tweaking the engine, suspension, chassis, weight reduction, aero, etc.? I guess it's a toss-up between those and retain the originality of the car. It's always been kind of wanting to maintain the silhouette of the car as it is. We are still developing the chassis. We actually have some new rear shocks, and we've got a chassis guy that's going to help us develop that a little bit more. In saying that, I'm still kind of playing around with it, and we have got it to go 160 foots now. I think realistically to get it into fairly deep sevens, we're going to have to go bigger turbo again. What turbo that ends up being, I'm not sure yet. We're still kind of exploring options, but yeah, we're kind of just chipping away at it. And I think if the stars align, we get like a 790 out of it in the current setup. But to go any faster than that, I think we're going to have to sort of make some fairly serious changes in the turbo department. Also, we may or may not end up running an Empire billet block, primarily as a testing mule for those guys rather than actually needing it. They've proven that you don't need a billet block to about 2,000 horsepower at the wheels with King FGX. That thing, I think from memory at the moment, it's run about a best of a 720 at 190 something mile an hour. So it's definitely putting the numbers on the board with the factory cast block. Thoughts on the auto industry and performance car transition into full EV? Is this the end of petrol mechanic as a trade? I guess, as you say, petrol mechanic or light vehicle mechanic will only be phased out if we can no longer buy that fuel. I really hope that doesn't become the case, that we can't buy fuel, because it'll just literally turn into Mad Max. But I think that it definitely has its place. For me, like watching Ford actually have a Mustang drag car that runs pretty similar times to the Cresta. The most boring thing about watching that thing is it's silent. I think a lot of the spectator element to drag racing is the noise and the feel and the smells of it. Like, you're still going to get that burning rubber smell, but you don't have the fuel and you don't have the noise and the sound and the vibrations of it. And I think at some point it's inevitable. It's going to happen, but I think as far as the spectator side of it goes and the motorsport side of it goes, it'll definitely lose a lot of feel and impact as a spectator. So I hope that we don't have a 10 to 15 year lifespan on combustion engines, because it is something that's cool scientifically. And I mean, EV stuff's cool too. I definitely wouldn't rule out doing something with an EV, but I would probably be doing a retrofit rather than going to buy a Tesla or something. And I mean, a Prius isn't exactly a performance car, so I wouldn't really look at a Prius platform. Do you own any non-JDM cars and have any plans to acquire one? It would be cool to see you take on an Australian or American muscle car or truck. The Falcon is not JDM, so I guess that's probably the closest thing we currently own to being a Aussie or American muscle car or truck. As I mentioned, that is coming back. And we do currently have a project with another Australian car. I don't own that, but you guys will be seeing that sooner or later. And it pretty much covers exactly what you're talking about. So we're going to be getting down and dirty with a different engine that we haven't pulled apart on the channel before. I won't say we haven't used it, but we haven't pulled it apart. Final questions. Favorite car to work on and least favorite? The worst job I've ever done would be a cam box reseal on a Citroen C5. That was 4 days of my life I'll never get back. Favorite car to work on, pretty much anything Japanese is very well thought out and planned. Also, shout out to Kia Carnivals too. Rear timing belt on that sucks. What made you sell the Stagia? I kind of didn't drive it that much, and then someone expressed interest in it, and yeah, he was fully in love with the car, so it was cool to see it go to someone that really liked it. Would you autograph BCW merch if I pay a little extra? No, I won't do it if you pay extra. Yes, I'll do it if you leave a comment for free. Did you ever share driving whilst in the US? In the Cresta, no. When we're driving other random stuff around, yeah. From my experience driving left-hand drive cars in Australia, it is quite hard to drive and navigate if you're on the wrong side of the car. So I didn't necessarily want to put that responsibility onto other people. I had no doubt that they would have been able to do it, but I also would have felt pretty bad if something happened and they were driving. So I felt somewhat responsible for the driving while we were over there. What's the process involved shipping a car to and from the USA? First and foremost, find someone who's actually got half a clue. There's plenty of people out there that'll say they will ship your car, but for the most part, not many people know how to do it. I'm not entirely across the process, but basically what we did or how we prepared was completely clean the vehicle, make sure that any loose items are out of it. All of our crew items, like all of our accessories and parts and whatnot, were packed separately in a sealed crate, basically for two reasons: for security and just to keep it all together. The one thing that actually did confuse me in America was they don't have customs hold or quarantine once the container's released. So basically, once the container leaves the port, you're free to unpack it straight away. Whereas in Australia, the container leaves the port, then it goes to a quarantine yard, everything's unpacked, then it's inspected by quarantine, it's washed and cleaned, and then hopefully you've done a good enough job washing and cleaning it the first time that it's your stuff to take away. And then inversely, packing the car back up in the States, try and clean it. And like I mentioned previously, it does come back, they wash everything, they clean it, they put water in stuff they shouldn't, and it always ends up damaging something. Or they pressure wash the crap out of your intercooler. The Cresta intercooler has really badly bent fins because someone went to town with a pressure washer. It is definitely something I should do, straightening those fins, but it's such a tedious job that I've put it off, and so far it hasn't really impacted it that badly. Have you ever heard of a 2000 Proton Satria GTI? If so, what mods would you do to it? Yes, I have heard of one. Yes, I would actually own one. I wanted a GTI when I was a P-plater. They were the pretty hot sauce P-plater car at the time. What would I do to it? Probably just jam an Evo engine in it. Unfortunately, the Satria GTI is based on the earlier CC Lancer, which has the engine around the wrong way. So basically you need a Galant VR4, a Nimbus, not a Nimbus, an RVR or a Evo 1-3 engine, and none of those are easy to come by because we've been scrapping those cars for 25 years. So that would be my answer, but yeah, definitely could do other stuff with it. Final question. What brand Injector flow bench cleaner did you get and what did it cost? It is a Automotive. It's just literally came off eBay. It was about $500. The one thing I would recommend is just to change the fuel pump in it straight away. It's designed to flow like 200cc injectors. So if you're going to put anything with a decent size in it, you definitely want to upgrade that pump. And it works pretty well. But the one thing it doesn't do is clean Decker injectors. I found out that the current draw is too high, so I'm trying to work out a solution for that at the moment. So ironically, the one car I bought to clean the injectors for, I can't clean the injectors for that car. So fail on my part. But yeah, I mean, for a home user, it's a fantastic tool, and it will save you tons of money on the long term because paying someone else to clean your injectors adds up quite a bit pretty quickly. Well, I hope you guys have really enjoyed a bit of an insight. I know this is going to be a bit of a long one, but anyone that's made it all this way through here, thanks for sticking on. Thanks to everyone who's supported us, all the guys watching, everyone who's subscribed. If you're not subscribed, please consider subscribing to the channel. If you do want some merch, we'll leave a link in the description as well. Thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you next time.